Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that's, well, it's definitely been in the headlines and on a lot of people's minds: weight loss, and specifically the medication semaglutide. But this isn't going to be your typical chat about just dosages or side effects. Our mission today is really to unpack a very particular philosophy. It comes from Dan Hollis, outlined in his manifesto, and some FAQs. See, most people seem to approach semaglutide as a kind of magic fix, maybe a shortcut, but Hollis argues it's something entirely different, something far more profound, actually. We're going to explore his unique perspective and try to understand why he says it's, quote, not a drug journey, it's a human one.
Yeah, and that phrase, a human one, it really captures how Hollis reframes the whole conversation around weight loss, doesn't it? He moves beyond just focusing on, willpower or the number you see on the scale. Instead, he emphasizes things like emotional recalibration, sustainable pacing, and what he actually calls identity work. You'll hear why he thinks of semaglutide less as the solution itself and maybe more like a signal, or even a pause button, like a catalyst for deeper change.
Okay, you've set the stage perfectly there. So let's dive right into Hollis's core argument then. When people hear semaglutide, like we said, the default is often quick fix. How does he immediately challenge that? What does he argue this medication really is?
He's incredibly clear about this. For him, semaglutide is, quote, not a drug journey. It's a human one. He stresses that it's a tool, a powerful one, sure, but only if you get what it's actually doing. Essentially, it's mimicking a natural hormone, GLP-1, right? And that changes how your brain processes hunger, satisfaction, even reward. It kind of dials down that constant food noise that so many people describe. As he puts it, semaglutide isn't the solution, it's the signal. He calls it a pause button or reset, a chance to build new systems while the noise gets quiet. But, and this is key, only if you know what to do with that silence. Without that structure, without support, he argues it can just amplify your confusion just as fast as it lowers your appetite.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just a switch for your metabolism. It's an opportunity, maybe a profound one, for a mental and emotional reset, but only if you're ready to use that quiet time effectively. And that idea, it really connects when Hollis starts taking apart another huge concept in weight loss: willpower. For so many of us, I mean, that's been the main strategy, right? And often the failing one. So why does he say willpower was never the problem?
Well, his point is that people have already tried willpower, like countless times, often to the point of just feeling exhausted and blaming themselves. Hollis argues the issue isn't really a lack of effort or some kind of moral failing. It's that biology, emotion, and habit loops are stacked against you. That's his phrase. He doesn't pull punches either. He says you're working against a biology that wasn't explained to you and a culture that profits from your confusion. So what works instead? According to Hollis, it's insight, structure, tools that meet your biology where it's at. He even shares a bit about himself, admitting, I was the guy who couldn't lose weight, who felt broken, who was ashamed to ask for help.
That feels like a huge psychological shift, and honestly, probably a massive relief for anyone listening who's felt that sense of personal failure before. But okay, if willpower isn't the core problem, how does Hollis square that with, personal responsibility? Is he just saying give up trying, or is it a different kind of effort he's pointing toward?
Oh, it's definitely not about giving up. Not at all. The effort he's advocating for is directed differently. It's about understanding your biology, adapting to it, rather than just constantly fighting against it. And this actually leads right into the deeper work he really champions, which is about unmasking emotional hunger.
Right. This is where I found it got really interesting, too. He dives deep into emotional hunger, making a clear line between that and physical hunger. What does he mean when he says emotional hunger is a question, a need asking to be seen?
He's pinpointing the fact that people often eat not because their body physically needs fuel, right? But because they're feeling something else. They're anxious, lonely, bored, overstimulated, or undersupported. His words. You might genuinely mistake feeling tired or lonely for being hungry. And you reach for something in the pantry looking for connection or comfort or maybe just clarity. And he uses this really powerful image. When food stops being your emotional scaffolding, you don't just feel lighter, you feel exposed. Think of that scaffolding like the unconscious crutch, maybe. The default coping mechanism you use when feelings get uncomfortable. The crucial insight here, according to Hollis, is that semaglutide doesn't solve emotional hunger. It just makes the biological noise quiet enough to finally hear it. Yeah. He emphasizes it's the silence that lets you find the real need. And if you don't rebuild that emotional framework that food used to support, well, that's often when relapse happens. So the real work involves learning to pause, get curious about what you're feeling, and ask yourself, okay, what am I really hungry for right now?
That's a profound distinction. The drug creates the space for that self-inquiry. It doesn't actually solve the underlying issue itself. It reminds me of that phrase, hungry for anything but food. Okay, so what happens next? Once that silence kicks in and you start hearing those deeper emotional signals, what's the practical step?
Well, that leads directly to the practical side of things, which is pacing.
Yeah.
It's not just emotional work.
Oh.
Hollis also talks a lot about the physical approach, specifically the pace of weight loss. He actually warns that fast weight loss without metabolic pacing is a trap.
A trap. What are the dangers he's seeing there with losing weight too quickly?
Well, he explains that really rapid weight loss can trigger some pretty significant metabolic slowdowns. And you could lose a disproportionate amount of muscle mass, too, which ironically makes long-term success harder. Your body basically sees rapid change as a threat, right? So Hollis advocates for pacing. He says you need to time your nutrition, your habits, your progress in a way your body can actually sustain. Because, as he puts it, and I like this, you're not here to win the race. You're here to finish it. And crucially, he stresses, the real work begins after the medication. Semaglutide isn't meant to be forever. If you don't have a clear off-ramp strategy, a new way of operating, well, appetite comes back, old emotional triggers can reactivate, and you often see rebound weight gain.
Right.
So to sustain the results, Hollis really emphasizes what he calls identity work, which means essentially becoming the kind of person who doesn't need weight loss as a project anymore. He states, you don't hold on to weight loss with discipline. You hold on to it with alignment.
Alignment, not just discipline. So the focus isn't just getting results quickly, but building those sustainable habits and, wow, a whole new identity that lasts beyond the medication. That feels like a big ask for many people. What does that identity work look like, practically speaking? How do you get aligned so you don't need weight loss as a project?
Yeah, it is a big concept. Practically, it's about consciously shifting how you see yourself and what you do day to day. It means building new coping skills for stress or boredom, really identifying what you need emotionally, not just physically, and then consistently practicing new habits until they feel, well, second nature. Not something you have to constantly force with sheer willpower. It's about making peace, in a way, with your body and your habits.
It definitely sounds like a total reframe, moving away from this idea of a battle against yourself towards more of an alliance with your body. So what does all this mean for someone listening who feels like, I failed every single time before this, as Hollis puts it? How does his approach fundamentally change the mindset around weight loss?
I think he offers a really profoundly empathetic and empowering message there. He says, there is no shame here, only process. He asserts really clearly, you are not broken, you're not lazy, you're not undisciplined. He argues that those past attempts, they weren't failures. They just tested what doesn't work. Now let's build what does, with tools that match your biology, not shame your behavior. That's the goal. He aims to help people reset both your body and your expectations of yourself. And he defines success differently too, not just by the number on the scale, but by how many coping mechanisms we've replaced with real tools. Again, for him, weight loss is a side effect of clarity. And he makes this really powerful point. If your body's biochemistry is rigged against you, using science to unrig it isn't cheating, it's adapting. The real cheat, he says, is pretending willpower was enough, all along. The whole system he proposes, he describes it as a conversation, not a prescription, offering a map, a guide, and a community.
Yeah, a conversation, not a prescription. That really sums it up. It certainly sounds like a profound reframe, shifting from that battle footing to what Hollis calls an alliance with one's body. And it's not just about the scale, but about finding a deeper internal clarity. This deep dive into Dan Hollis's perspective, it really has reframed how we might think about semaglutide and weight loss, hasn't it? It shifts the focus away from just the drug or just brute force willpower towards a much more holistic journey, one that includes emotional well-being, metabolic health, and, yeah, ultimately identity.
Absolutely. What Hollis really seems to reveal is that the profound effect of these medications might not just be the physical change, it might actually be the quiet, that silence he talks about, the one that allows you to finally hear what you are really hungry for. So maybe we can leave you with this thought, perhaps a provocative one. If semaglutide can offer that pause button, that moment of quiet, in what can feel like the relentless noise of cravings, what other signals, what other needs in your life might you finally be able to hear and then maybe begin to address in that newfound silence?